Hello, I'm Jim Rohn, and if you're watching this video, you're probably wondering, why do some people keep repeating the emotional drama cycle with their anxious exes? You know, the kind of person who seems to never escape that emotional boomerang, throwing it away only for it to come back, even though they know it's not healthy at all. Have you ever been confused seeing a friend, or even yourself, unable to walk away from anxious, insecure relationships, even when your mind tells you it's time to let go? Today we're going to uncover a little-known psychological secret: what truly draws avoidant individuals, those who constantly run from emotions, back to their anxious exes as if it were an irresistible fate. It's not just coincidence, but a deep psychological pattern, an unconscious dance between fear and the need for connection. You might be surprised to learn that behind those moments of coming back is not just blind love, but a bigger story about how our brains process attachment and loneliness. Don't take your eyes off this video, because I'll reveal why that cycle keeps repeating, and more importantly, how to recognize and possibly break it. If you want to better understand human psychology, complex relationships, and how not to fall into old emotional traps, hit the subscribe button right now. I'm Jim Rohn, and I'm here to dive deep with you into the things no one dares to talk about. Let's begin. Are you ready to explore? Do avoidant individuals come back to their anxious exes? The answer is yes, and I know this from my own experience as well as what I've witnessed with many clients. This especially happens in relationships that have lasted for years. I used to be someone with an anxious attachment, and I realized something: no matter how tense the relationship got, I always tried my best to please my partner, even at the expense of my own needs. Why do they come back? For me, the reason is quite clear: I made his life too easy. I was sensitive to all his needs, always trying to do everything perfectly because I feared being abandoned. I thought that if I was good enough, he wouldn't leave. But the truth is, I was wrong. Constantly sacrificing like that only left me exhausted, bitter, and hurt. Every time my needs were ignored, I felt worthless, and that's what threw me into a spiral of negative emotion. Avoidant individuals often aren't good at meeting other people's needs, but they're easily drawn to anxiously attached people like me. Why? Because we're willing to do everything to keep them around, even if that means hurting ourselves. They come back not because they've changed, but because they know we always leave the door open. But trust me, that's no way to live. Don't make yourself into a doormat for anyone. You deserve to be loved fully, not just used to fill someone else's void. Imagine what happens when someone with an avoidant attachment style falls in love with someone who has a secure attachment. At first, the relationship might look like the perfect couple: one calm, confident person, the other independent and self-sufficient. But as the relationship progresses, the distance becomes apparent. Securely attached individuals tend to communicate clearly, express emotions, and set healthy boundaries. They're not afraid to say, "I feel uncared for," or "I need more connection in this relationship." And this is exactly when the avoidant person starts to feel out of control. They are easily triggered by demands for closeness, feeling threatened by the intimacy that the secure partner desires. Avoidance, whether through silence, emotional detachment, or gradually withdrawing, makes the secure person feel insecure. But instead of tolerating it, the secure person tends to withdraw from an unresponsive relationship. They don't play the chasing game because they know they deserve a clear and mutual connection. What if two avoidantly attached people fall in love? It might look like a good match because neither demands too much, but in reality, it's the formula for a shallow relationship. No one truly opens up. No one actively nurtures the connection. Emotions can't deepen if both are afraid of being hurt and avoid honest sharing. One goes silent, the other becomes more distant. The relationship fades day by day. A study by psychologist Philip Shaver once pointed out, avoidance of intimacy is one of the factors that makes relationships least likely to last in the long run. Not because they don't know how to love, but because they haven't learned how to love in a healthy way. The result? It falls apart as quickly as a passing breeze. But when an avoidant person pairs up with someone anxiously attached, things turn out differently. The avoidant gets cared for, receives attention, something they longed for since childhood but rarely had. Meanwhile, the anxious person is used to giving without receiving. They tolerate the coldness, the neglect, because that's what they've known since they were young. Like a subconscious comfort zone, they keep trying, keep hoping, even as their heart grows weary. The avoidant likes that who doesn't want to be loved without having to give back. But the truth is, this cycle brings happiness to no one. The anxious partner becomes exhausted, and the avoidant never learns how to truly love. A relationship like that may sound appealing to them, but it's really a subtle emotional trap. What happens when the anxious person tries to pull the avoidant closer? It's simple. They start setting expectations, wanting a deeper relationship. But that only adds fuel to the fire. The avoidant feels suffocated, pressured, and what do? They retreat. And so begins the dramatic play. The more the anxious partner clings, the further the avoidant runs. This push-pull spiral repeats endlessly, with neither willing to stop. Eventually, the anxious partner grows tired and lets go. That's when the avoidant finally has room to breathe. They feel relieved, but only for a short time. Then memories flood in, longing resurfaces, and they start craving the affection that was once given to them. Will they come back? Quite possibly, but that depends on whether they've changed. If they're still carrying old wounds, still refusing to heal, then sorry, the same cycle continues. They come back, things feel sweet for a moment, then they run again when pressure builds. But you know what? You're not powerless in this. If you're stuck with someone avoidant who won't change, you can break the cycle. Use the time apart to reflect on yourself. Why do you keep trying twice as hard in a relationship that gives you nothing back? What makes you believe that pouring in more effort will bring you the love you crave? This is your chance to heal your attachment style, learn to love yourself, and stop chasing those who don't deserve you. Trust me, when you're stronger, you won't want to jump back into that spiral anymore. Have you ever stopped to wonder why you keep sidelining yourself, always putting someone else's happiness first? That's a classic mark of an anxiously attached person, always trying to please, always afraid of losing the other. But listen to me, you don't have to live like that forever. People with a secure attachment style don't act that way. They know their worth, know how to love themselves, and aren't afraid to demand a fair relationship where both care for each other. You absolutely deserve that too. You weren't born to be appreciated only after you've walked away or to be a temporary harbor for someone lost. You deserve deep love, consistent care, not flickering affection like blinking lights. So why do avoidant individuals often come back to anxious partners? Don't be quick to think it's a sign of change or maturity on their part. In reality, the reason is often much simpler and more selfish. They come back because you're one of the rare people who meet all their needs without expecting anything in return. I've been in this situation. After breaking up with me, he tried finding someone new, only to realize no one cared for him the way I did. So he came back, not because he loved me more, but because I was the convenient choice. Some even believe the grass is greener, rush out to explore, only to be disappointed and return to the old place. But do you see the problem? You're not a lifeboat or a temporary parking spot for anyone. Try dreaming about a different relationship, a better one. In it, you meet someone who truly wants to understand you, from the small things like how you like your coffee to the big dreams you hold inside. They don't just want to receive, but are also willing to give, building a harmonious love where both feel fulfilled. You're not the last resort they settle for when all else fails. You're the one they choose from the beginning. Don't let yourself be a pit stop for someone who only knows how to run. You deserve someone who stays, who anchors beside you because they value you, not because they have nowhere else to go. Change begins with you. Stop over-sacrificing. Stop accepting emotional scraps instead of a full banquet of love. You are a treasure, not just someone who fills the void for someone else. When you start believing that, you'll find yourself no longer clinging to those who don't appreciate you. Instead, you'll open up to real love, where you're seen, heard, and genuinely loved. Don't wait for the avoidant person to come back. Walk away and find the happiness you truly deserve. If you're scrolling the web wondering whether that avoidant person will come back, then maybe it's time to redirect your focus. I know that feeling all too well, waiting for a message, a tiny sign, an explanation. But here's what matters. While you're waiting for someone else to return, you might be unintentionally abandoning yourself. Instead of living in the loop of hope and disappointment, try something different. Return to yourself. Ask, what do I truly need right now, not from them, but from myself? Taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's an act of courage and healing. It's the first step in no longer depending on someone else's unstable affection. I once said in a video, you won't allow someone to treat you worse than the way you treat yourself. And this is truer than ever in a relationship with someone who has avoidant attachment. If they're cold, distant, or often disappear, take a look. Maybe you're doing the same to yourself, ignoring emotions, suppressing needs, pretending to be okay when you're hurting. You might think, I don't do that to myself. But look more closely. Do you often push aside your emotional needs just to keep the peace? Have you stayed silent while your heart was screaming? Have you ever convinced yourself that you were asking for too much? These small things are signs of self-abandonment, and when that becomes familiar, you'll find that others' coldness starts to feel normal. But there is another path, a new way of living. When you begin to nurture yourself through simple things like getting enough sleep, eating properly, journaling your emotions, and setting healthy boundaries, you are rebuilding the foundation of self-worth. And something magical happens. Toxic relationships no longer appeal to you the way they once did. You no longer get caught up in the hide-and-seek game of the avoidant because you no longer crave someone to fill the emptiness inside you. You've started to do that yourself. A famous study by psychologists Amir Levine and Rachel Heller in the book Attached showed that when you shift your attachment style from anxious or avoidant to secure, you not only heal yourself but also attract healthier relationships. It's not magic. It's the result of choosing yourself every day. I understand if you're in a push-and-pull relationship, it can feel confusing and exhausting. But you're not alone. Many people have overcome this, and you can too. Don't wait for the other person to change. Start by changing your relationship with yourself. From there, you'll find that you no longer want to chase the avoidant, but will gently welcome someone who is truly ready to be with you. And if you're wondering, after I learn how to take care of myself, what comes next? Then that's when we talk about the next step. How to build a secure attachment style even if you've carried deep wounds from the past. But that will be a story for the next chapter. We've just taken a small journey together to better understand the avoidant attachment style, how it affects love, connection, and the way we treat ourselves. Maybe you realized you've been caught in the push-pull cycle with an avoidant person, or perhaps you carry a tendency to run from closeness yourself. Whichever role you've been in, the most important thing is not to assign blame, but to recognize so that you can learn to heal and grow. We talked about pausing to return to self-care, about how secure people respond when in relationships with avoidance, and why two avoidants often can't sustain long-term connection. None of this is just psychological theory. It's made up of real-life pieces from the emotional lives of many people. When you understand these patterns, you begin to see how to step out of unhealthy relationships and move toward a more mature, secure love. Thank you for taking the time to listen and stay with me until the end of today's video. I know the healing journey is not easy, but trust me, you are not alone. As long as you begin with yourself, one small step at a time, you've already made it halfway there. If you found today's content helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss upcoming videos on psychology, healing, and attachment styles. I'd also love to hear your thoughts, experiences, or questions in the comments below. Have you ever loved an avoidant person? What have you learned from that journey? Please share, because your story might be the motivation someone else needs on a similar path. See you in the next videos. There's still so much more to explore, and I truly look forward to continuing this emotional growth journey with you.